an episode to talk about today. The penultimate episode of Dexter New Blood, entitled The Family Business. I mean, what's better than a Christmas episode with a father and son bonding over killing someone? Welcome back to the Real Hero Show. Nick here with you. I hope everyone had a great New Year's weekend as we head into 2022 here. And again, into this penultimate episode, there will be spoilers. If you haven't watched this yet, I highly suggest you watch this and then come back here and hear what I have to say. So right off the bat, the biggest question, I think, going into this episode is what's going to happen to Dexter and Harrison and Kurt, because that's the highlight of this episode is the family bond, and then what happens to Kurt. So first and foremost, the explanations that Dexter gives him, and one of the things I wrote down, I took a lot of notes, so I'm going to try and speed through this as effectively as possible here while trying to get my point across. One of the questions I wrote down here is the subconscious of Deb right in this about Harrison? Because every time Dexter tries to say something, she pops out or pops in, Dexter sees her, and every time she's like, don't say that. If you do it, it's bad. And I'm like, I think he should just take a chance and say it and see how Harrison reacts, which we do, because then at one point Deb appears and she's quiet. And it's like, that's because that was what Dexter should have done all along here, is tell Harrison the truth. And gradually, of course, which is what happens. And from Harrison having to, hear a little bit as to what happened, and the soft truth to a little bit of a, pour on truth, to seeing Dexter stab Kurt right through the chest, that is a lot to go through in a short amount of time. So I love the fact that, the bonding was established. It's out. Harrison knows about it. The bonding of their mothers being, murdered at such a young age, or the two of them, Dexter's breaking the fourth wall while he's explaining Harrison, the code, to use it for good. And even though he doesn't tell Harrison about the trophies he kept, we do see the trophies, and we do hear talk about the trophies, about, Mr. Wiggles, the flashback, how the Polaroid pictures were his trophies, which was hilarious when Dexter popped off the nose and looked at the camera. And I think because he doesn't tell Harrison that, it's to, again, kind of lessen the blow of all this truth and to not make him seem like the other serial killers. And Harrison even says, kind of like Batman. And I'm like, maybe more like the Punisher or some other, vigilante that actually kills bad guys. Because Batman, he may have beaten them to shit and beat them close to death in some points in like the comics. But even then, he never killed. Although he actually did, but I digress. And we see him, Dexter, going back to wrap Elric's body. So I'm glad they kind of didn't leave that out. And we get the little, at least his body is, frozen. There's no bloody mess, which there's a cut scene to what Angela's doing at that point in the episode, which I'll get to in a second. Because while this episode is high up there in my rating, I can't give it a perfect score, and I'll tell you why. Just hang tight with me, okay? I also like the fact that this episode didn't highly, resort around Mr. Wiggles, because that preview, I'm like, come on, this can't be like this weird flashback, and it's all about this past kill that Dexter had. Like, I don't want to see that. I want to hear Iron Lake. And I think it was a good use of time. Because there were a couple points in this episode where I paused it. I'm like, how much time is left? Because there's some shit that needs to happen, and I want to make sure that there's enough time for them to do it. So I think the pacing of this episode was great. It was a good length, of course, as well. And with Harrison, you thinking him hit like Batman, right? He wonders if Kurt's going to come after them, and to him already kind of thinking about that, which Harrison does, throughout this episode up until the kill. It's almost, we hear Dexter saying, "Come on, say it." Like he wants Harrison to say that he, how he can help in this, and he does. Right after they go to Audrey and Angela's for Christmas. And speaking of Christmas, this is his first Christmas together. Actually, both of their first Christmases together. And Dexter gets him a lot of nice gifts to kind of help blend in. So again, he's learning more about his father's way of life, and he goes with it. He doesn't question it. He's like, quick learner on the gun. Is in with the ugliest sweaters. Even Audrey notices, a change in Harrison, that he's happy now. And of course, Harrison's happy. We see how he's happy. We see why he's happy. That monkey bread did look good though. I kind of wanted some, not gonna lie. But Audrey gives him a kiss, loves the scarf, right? And at the end of the episode, which we'll get to, of course, she wants Dexter and Harrison to stay with him because she is that sort of accustomed to their presence, to, what she thinks of the two of them. And while Angela hasn't been forthright with Audrey, in which we do see in that finale preview, which again, I'll say for the very, very end. I'm not going to talk about it right now. And for the sake of Harrison, being a quick learner, which we've seen in, the batting cages, we see now here with the rifle. He's going to be a quick learner with what Dexter has shown him. In every single instance, he wants to see it, right? And right when he leaves Angela and Audrey's house, the first thing he says is, "What if we did what you did with Wiggles, Mr. Wiggles?" Right? It's not what if you did, it's what if we. So automatically, like he's jumping right in. I'm in this with you, Dad. Let's go do this. Fuck you and thanks for the drone, Kurt. Right? That had me laughing there. And in that moment too, as Dexter has become open and shown his vulnerability, that's also allowed Harrison to talk about things like Ethan, right? He's like, "I set it up, to look like a hero. How'd you know?" And Dexter's like, it was a kind of a blood splatter, like expert, for the homicide life. And, which makes sense. And of course, Harrison, puts the pieces in his own head together. But the other instance that, again, Dexter's sort of setting these things up for his son. He goes, to you, Harrison, what does justice feel like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? And he says what he wanted to do to the Trinity Killer, right? To kill him. And so, boom, there's your answer. We don't need anything else, right? But as they find a vent, he asks his father to learn more skills like breaking in, with the lock, and to watch this process of what Dexter's analyzing, right? And that lair that Kurt had, we've only seen bits and pieces of it from when he had his victims on the metal table there, or the cart rather, but seeing how big it was, and now that's underground, and it's just like, how? Now I'm like, he had to have built that, and I'm like, or if it was there from a previous time, but it was kind of eerie, strange, and yet somewhat cool that they were able to establish that, I guess, just for story's sake. But man, when we see those showcases that are encased with every single victim that Kurt has killed in the last 25 years, it is fucking creepy. And you can see the look on Harrison's face, and then you see the look on Dexter's face. Even Dexter's a little creeped out by it. He's like, man, this is some serious, shit. But I also think he's sort of like taking it in about how he's done like his version, because he's seen, you know, all these serial killers in the past kind of have their own, you know, unique way of doing it, and Kurt's, you know, is definitely up there for the most fucked up and creepy. I think. Well, I think that might be an interesting list. Kind of sick to maybe talk about, but of all the serial killers in Dexter, period, right, including this season, which serial killers had the creepiest, but quote unquote, like, I hate to say best, but maybe we'll just go with creepiest sort of trophy method, right? Because what Dexter did with the bodies was, you know, creepy, but like, maybe not so much. But keeping like the blood vials, like the, you know, like the little slabs, little glass. I am forgetting the name of that, but you all know what I'm talking about. That's not that creepy compared to like what this was. Like I would almost just like maybe compare Mr. Wiggles with the Polaroid pictures to what, you know, what Dexter did. But I digress on this. When Harrison says, "This motherfucker needs to die too," I'm like, well, okay. Harrison is 100% all in. And, you know, before we get to that part, I'm going to skip over to Kurt, right? When he shows up on Angela's house, I wonder if he also slid the note in there at that moment, or if he did it at some other time and Angela just didn't notice it. I think it might have been at some other point. Because I think when Dexter and Harrison leave, you don't see it on the, like in the mailbox on the side of the house there. But you know, he says, "I would have brought something special for you." Yeah, like 2 bullets. You know, and Kurt's gearing up for some sort of, you know, final shootout, right? And well, we obviously see the arsony of, or the arson rather, with you know, Kurt, you know, spraying his house with gasoline, lights it on fire. It's a failed attempt at a bait trap, because he gets a notification on his phone that the Morgans are breaking into his little secret lair, and he's freaking out. And I know a lot of people were talking about this and wondering and saying that Molly was already dead. And I was maybe like 60-40, because I think in some cases we needed to see it happen. And that's where I want to kind of take some points off this episode in terms of rating wise. You know, she was a character that was included. You know, you introduced this whole podcast from her, and you have her partner up with Angela to kind of look into some investigations, you know, some missing people and all this. Like, at least show her getting killed, because that was like the theory online, like, oh, Kurt killed Molly and this is how, this is why. Why not show it? Why not show it? Come on. Like, at least just the capturing of it. You know, again, it was kind of poorly alluded to, I think. Like, and again, I had a feeling, and I think a lot of people had a feeling, that she was going to get killed or was killed. And of course, I'm kind of just waiting for Harrison, since he was in front of Dexter, to get to that one booth, one little encased, you know, part of the long hallway. And there is Molly Park, all done up, all nice, dead. You know, and again, I knew it. I was like, boom, people called it, and like, I had a feeling, because we didn't see her up to that point. I'm like, she's definitely dead. 100% she's definitely dead. And of course, even, you know, we even see Angela looking into where Molly is. She calls her, doesn't answer, goes to the hotel room where she was staying. The clerk's like, oh yeah, I guess she left. And Angela goes, oh, what's that? It's a hotel safe, or a hotel room safe. And of course, she gets it opened, and there's a camera and her recorder in there. And of course, Angela's like, oh, she would never leave this behind. Well, duh. So again, that just even sparks Angela's interest into everything even more. And again, I wanted to see it. I just wanted to see something where Kurt takes Molly. Like, he already tried once, so we kind of knew he would do it again, but just show it. That's all I was asking. Just the luring, whether it's he chloroforms her or just something, right? Like, that's all I really wanted to see. But once they ambush Kurt at his home, and Harrison gives him a little like back to him, and Dexter gets him with the ketamine, and having him on his table here. And even when that whole process is going down, the entire time I'm thinking, like, how is Harrison going to react? What's Dexter going to say? To Harrison in these moments. And again, just kind of seeing, you kind of get this perspective of him looking at his old man talking, and just in the act of everything, like, he's taking it all in. He's learning and about why, parts of the code, right? And for the sake of the conversation that is being had between Kurt and Dexter, when Kurt's like, oh, he doesn't know about Matt, that you killed my son, so I was going to kill you to get back at him. And Dexter's like, no, he fit the code because he killed 5 people. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, and so I wonder if Kurt didn't even know that he really killed those 5 people, because he had this look on his face. And again, that, got to give credit for Clancy Brown, and an amazing job this season as being the antagonist here to Michael C. Hall. And again, he has this look, like almost like a slight puzzlement of, wait, Matt killed those people in the boat? He told me, he was probably thinking, wait, what? Matt told me he didn't kill them, and that his friend did. Well, again, that was probably a lie. At least that's kind of what I'm thinking there. But what do you all think? Do you think Kurt knew? Or do you think he was lied to by his son about what happened on the boat with those 5 people? And the other fucked up part with Kurt, was his logic behind killing these women. Because even Harrison's like, you killed women. And I like the fact that Harrison was sort of jumping in there. Like, I was kind of not worried, but wondering if he would just sort of stay quiet this entire time while his dad did all the work. But he was as present as he could be. I almost thought if he would take the knife from Dexter and do it himself, but he didn't. Again, it might have been a little bit too much, but probably watch his old man first, like he did. And again, he said that his logic was to kill the runaways because they were miserable, and he was just saving them. And I'm like, no, dude, like, no, that's fucked up and all wrong. And of course he's dead. Dexter's like, now I have to go through the disposal process. And Harrison's like, nope, I'm all good. Cool. And the blood starts to drip down, starts to get to him. You flash back to the Trinity Killer, and he has to go up, get some fresh air. And, as far as, again, the moment that they have together in this big kill, it was great. I think, again, what a fantastic penultimate episode here. They burned the body in the same place his son, Matt Caldwell, was burned in the furnace there. And ironically, they go back home and find that their home has been burned down. And of course, the police force is there, Audrey's there, Angela's there, right? And they're all like, oh my God, we thought you were burned alive and dead. And of course, Angela's all suspicious about, where he was, where they were rather. And it's like, oh, I turned my phone off, like trying to be present with my son on like, a blood moon, Christmas night. Which, I mean, look, that I think that's believable. Although from Angela's point of view, I know she doesn't believe it whatsoever. And yeah, again, that's when Audrey's like, they should come stay with us. And all right, so let's talk about this part, the other part I don't like, and the other part where I'm going to notch this down just a little bit, overall my rating. So Angela is digging more into the Bay Harbor Butcher, right? More plot convenience. We talked about this last week. And again, like, oh, we look at the mark on the neck, and it's like, no, these bodies, they never established that, right? We were talking about this in the comments, which I really appreciate everyone that chimed in. It was a great time, hearing from people and what everyone thought. But they never established that he used anything, the M99 or needles whatsoever. And the fact that they bring up a body that was decomposing in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, like even in a garbage bag, like you wouldn't see that little mark over all that time. I'm sorry, and even in a fiction, very fictionary show about a serial killer, that's just not very believable. I'm sorry, like I hate to kind of push on that, but that's the other part I just don't like. It's, again, not going to beat a dead horse, but too plot convenience for me. And ironically, on the Christmas gift exchange, Dexter gets Angela a book about search seizures and arrests. Talk about his dad, Harry, about using police books and whatnot. That might come back and bite him in the ass. And when she's digging into the ketamine again, right, it goes to the one chick, the one lady about who has all the ketamine, the veterinarian, or I can't think of her name, but anyway, I just, that part just kind of turned me off so much. I was like, I don't even give a shit what her name is. I'm sorry. Oh, by the way, like, yeah, your boyfriend did come in here, and I'm like, of course he did. We know that he did, but like, you just had to, find his name on there, right? Of course. I was like, that's definitely coming. I'm like, she's not going to say his name? Okay, she did, right? Gotcha. And she got this look on her face, and then of course she's listening to Molly's podcast about the Bay Harbor Butcher, and every time Dexter was like, "Oh, I love you," she's like, "Yeah, Merry Christmas to you too." And even during the Mary fucking Kill podcast, Molly even says, yeah, another Batman reference. I'm like, he's not Batman. Batman does not kill people. Like, I get it. He's probably the most easy person to think of when people think vigilantes, but even Sergeant Dokes gets mentioned, right? Like, we were talking about him in the comics as well. To say comics? Comments. And again, like, I thought it was kind of funny. She gets startled by Audrey. Like, I see someone walking towards her, and I'm like, oh, it's Audrey. Okay. But the part at the end where Angela gets a note, obviously from Kurt, because the titanium like rods are in the letter as well, and it just says Jim Lindsay killed Matt Caldwell. And I'm like, well, what's she gonna do? So let's talk about so right here, if you got in this part, I'm going to talk about the preview of next week of the finale. Okay. So skip a few minutes, and I'll give a signal when it's cool to watch again. So in the finale, we see that Angela tells Dexter there's evidence of arson. No shit. Dexter and Harrison hugging, saying the world needs us. Angela is frantic, and she's obviously calling for some sort of backup. Dexter's running. You can kind of hear a helicopter. We see him get his photo taken, and you can hear Michael C. Hall saying, "You'll see what real evil looks like," which doesn't seem like a complete sentence, because it's either a response or there's something that comes before that, and then he says those words, right? So I'm curious. And again, you cut a trailer to kind of mislead people, and again, especially for finale, you don't want to lead things on and kind of again give too much away. So if you skip to this part, this is a good part to those are terrible signals. Oh my God. That you can continue watching about this episode here. So to kind of wrap it up, I think the parts of Angela, again, seeing Dexter and Harrison in her home now, thinking that, oh, well, I have to arrest him. Like, on what grounds? Those titanium rods, like, there's no evidence to bring Jim Lindsay or Dexter Morgan into to arrest him. There's no evidence. A note? Oh, come on. That is, I swear, if that's what they go on, that is the biggest crock of shit I've ever seen. Like, even for a TV show, like, there's no proof. Put in some titanium rods in there, he could be like, what? I didn't. How are those mats, and how did they just show up? Who wrote that, right? Like, there's a lot that they can do, and it's just like, look, you're trying to blame me. Where's Kurt now? That's convenient. You leave a note. You try to frame Jim Lindsay, and you skip town. Yeah, real convenient. So I don't know what everyone thinks about the finale. What's really going to happen, right? Like, a lot of us have been talking about how there's a potential, Dexter will get locked up for good. He might get killed, and then Harrison, takes the reins on, the family business. Or, I thought, what if Harrison died while trying to protect his dad from Angela? Like, there's I really hope we get tricked up on this one, which I think at some point there will probably be some sort of someone will probably be right in their guesstimation here. So what I want to see from everyone is what they thought of this episode, and what do people think will happen in the finale, because I will chime in with everyone on that as well. But overall, I'm going to give this episode a solid 9 out of 10. I would have probably given it a 10 out of 10 if they didn't go with the stupid, needle marks on the dead bodies of the Bay Harbor Butcher. And if we would have seen at least Molly Park get captured, or something else along those lines. Not like, oh, she's not in her hotel room, right? Like, no, I'm sorry. That's just a little bit too weak, in my opinion. So I know I rambled on for a little bit longer than I anticipated, but there's just so much to talk about in this penultimate episode. Again, might have been one of the best penultimate episodes in all of Dexter, I think. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I might watch this episode again. I enjoyed it that much. So I look forward to seeing and reading what people say and have to say about this episode and the next one. And until next time, guys, I will see everyone on the Dexter New Blood finale. Cheers.